1,000 scientists in Colorado could be out of a job if President Trump gets his way.
It is gutting, it is debilitating, and it wasn't unexpected.
CU Regents censure one of their own, claiming she used her power to benefit the cannabis industry where she works. She's having none of it.
What kind of bull is this, y'all?
As CBS News joins ABC News in making a big payout to the president, I'll have a word about private moments here when news leaders have stood up for journalism under threat. And for once, there are people in harmony on the local news.
Barbershop music is a uniquely American art form.
That's tonight on Next. More than 1,000 scientists in Colorado could be laid off under the Trump administration's NOAA budget proposal. That's the assessment of a group that promotes Colorado's federal labs, including the 4 NOAA locations in Boulder, slated to receive 0 funding. Scientists told our Spencer Soisher the Trump administration's anti-science crusade could be disastrous.
Boulder is a gem.
Beauty and innovation makes Boulder, Boulder.
That is the foundation of our economy.
Boulder is home to more than a dozen federal labs, until October at least.
We're deeply concerned.
NOAA, or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is part of the Department of Commerce. The Trump administration's NOAA budget was posted this week and eliminates funding for Boulder's 4 NOAA labs.
To see a budget proposal by the administration sent to Congress that says we request $0 for that office in fiscal year 26 and 0 full-time employees. That is stark.
Dan Powers with CoLabs promotes the work coming out of the state's federal research labs, like the NOAA labs in Boulder. The climate science research can help determine climate impact and better forecasting that help guide preparation for industries like agriculture and farming to transportation and utility grid stability.
My mortgage rate is depending upon what the potential of climate impact will be in my neighborhood, what the sea level rise will be, why, when. All of that is calculated, assessed, and forecast by NOAA.
Former NOAA Assistant Administrator Craig McLean kept it clean, but blunt, describing the cuts.
The profound, crass, vindictive, I'll say even stupidity that's being exacted by this administration on the science of the nation.
Between the scientists at the Boulder NOAA labs and the researchers in the Cooperative Institute between NOAA, CU, and CSU, CoLabs believes that more than 1,000 scientists in Boulder will be out of work.
To choose from a political perspective that simply is information that we don't want to know anymore, that on its face it's not valuable, is striking and confusing.
We got a generic statement back from NOAA saying it's still dedicated to its mission. Say all this goes through, though, and at some point later a future administration decides to bring it back, that's still a problem. CoLabs and McLean both say that the data gap taints their science, and it's impossible to know what may have been missed during the gap.
Right, I mean, one thing that we'll say around here is like facts don't care if you believe in them. They're still facts. Science doesn't care if you study it. It still rolls on whether or not people are watching.
Yeah, one of them used an analogy earlier, like you go to the doctor and you find a growth. Just saying that you don't have the growth doesn't make it go away. They're also worried that a lot of these scientists, if they leave Boulder, if they leave Colorado, if they leave the United States and they go overseas, it's going to be hard to get them all back, and you're going to have to start from square one when you do get them back.
Right, we've seen this happen before when countries' scientific class empties out and goes to other nations. America has been the benefactor of that in the past, for sure. Spencer Soisher, thank you. Colorado schools could lose an estimated $70 million in federal funding for the coming school year as the Trump administration freezes grants already approved by Congress. Money was supposed to go out yesterday. The $6 billion in grants nationwide are for after-school and summer programs, for English classes for migrants, for recruiting and retaining staff, and for adult learning classes. Colorado's Department of Education says the Trump administration told them they're reviewing the funding to make sure it's in line with the president's priorities. State education leaders say they were not given a timeline on when they'll get the funding or if it's coming at all. DPS says it would lose $10 million in funding as part of this. They're now joining with other districts to ask the feds to send out the money as promised, pointing out that they've already hired staff and set up programs based on those expected dollars. The case against the last officer facing charges for the death of Christian Glass has now been dismissed. Former Georgetown Police Marshal Randy Williams was one of 6 officers on the scene the night that a Clear Creek County deputy shot and killed Glass when he wouldn't get out of his car during a mental health episode. That deputy who shot, Andrew Buin, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison for criminally negligent homicide. The other 6 on scene were charged with failure to intervene. 3 took a plea deal that included making a police training video on how to intervene to stop excessive force. Prosecutors say Williams's plea involved community service and an apology letter to the family. For only the second time, CU regents have censured one of their own. Democratic Regent Wanda James was censured and stripped of her official duties today. Her colleagues can't throw her out entirely because she was elected by the people. Our Marshall Zellinger shows us how the most outspoken CU regent got in trouble over things she said.
CU Regent Wanda James expected to be censured today. It was the punishment that got the biggest reaction.
What kind of bull is this, y'all?
James attended today's special CU Regents meeting from Brother Jeff's Cultural Center with her husband at her side and supporters in the background of her video feed. The virtual meeting was to determine if she violated university policy.
I am being targeted for raising my voice against a campaign that demeaned, dehumanized, and harmed the Black community.
Earlier this year, James, who owns a pot dispensary, called out this CU Anschutz anti-pot ad campaign for having racist imagery. The school agreed and removed the images. But according to the investigation presented to Regents, James also made several requests for the state funding for that ad campaign to be cut, essentially calling for CU funding to be cut. She also called out the narrative of the ad campaign as debunked science.
And even if you believed, as a cannabis advocate, that the program's research findings were inaccurate, you cannot put your interests or the interests of your trade above that of the university that you serve and lead.
The Regents voted 7-1 to censure James, strip her of all committee assignments, and not allow her to officially represent the university as a regent.
So I guess I'm not allowed to go to the football games. I'll talk to Coach Prime about that.
Since she's elected, she's still a regent. The sanctions she received could be revised or removed before her term ends in 2029.
You're going to tell Black students that you're not going to allow me to go to a graduation or a football game because I stood up for racism a little bit too hard? Oh my God.
The only other censure of a regent was in 2022. Then Republican Regent Glenn Gallegos was censured for behavior that was deemed disparaging, disrespectful, and threatening. He even joined all regents in voting yes for that censure. Today was a 7-1 vote. James abstained from voting, and Democrat Norbert Chavez voted against the censure, Kyle.
I mean, everything that I know about Wanda James suggests that she's not going to stop advocating for the things that she believes in, even if it makes other people mad. Like, that's kind of her deal.
She said if the same thing happened today, she would respond the exact same way all over again.
All right, Marshall Zellinger, thank you. University of Denver faculty have voted no confidence in the university's chancellor as DU struggles with declining enrollment and a budget shortfall. That no confidence vote came in a recent faculty-wide survey. 56% of the people responding said they had no confidence in Chancellor Jeremy Haffner. He's been the chancellor at DU since 2019. Last year, he announced the university was facing an $11 million budget deficit, requiring spending cuts and the elimination of some staff positions. A DU spokesperson told us that the university's board of trustees still supports the chancellor. The spokesperson said they'll work with faculty during, quote, one of the most challenging times in the history of higher education. Being the victim of a crime can be a terribly lonely and isolating experience. A nonprofit called the Rocky Mountain Victim Law Center makes sure that victims do not walk alone in our state. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign supports their work offering free legal representation and support for survivors. Rocky Mountain Victim Law Center makes sure that victims aren't just shut out because they can't afford legal representation. So they never charge for their work on behalf of victims of domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault, and other violent crime. They are right at survivors' sides as they navigate an often unfamiliar legal process while also trying to heal emotionally and physically. Beyond their one-on-one work with survivors, Rocky Mountain Victim Law Center also helps to train prosecutors, police, and attorneys on how they can better serve survivors of crime. So let's help them expand their work. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get the link to donate. Your 5 years of microgiving, raising more than $15 million, proves how $5 donations add up fast. I will never ask you to give if I don't, so I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us started, as always. More than 5,000 of you have signed up to really become the beating heart of this program by making a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. You put in your info once, each month, your donation's automatically split among all the nonprofits we feature, and you don't get a ton of emails. It's meant recent microgiving campaigns have started with almost $35,000 in donations. Another national news network makes a multi-million-dollar payout rather than fight a President Trump lawsuit. I'll have a word about the people who are standing up for journalism. The world's best harmonizers are making music here this week.
That's next.
Meteorologist Chris Bianchi's along now. And Chris, you know better than anybody around here the work that NOAA does and its importance. When you hear what our Spencer Soysher was reporting about the idea of up to 1,000 scientists in Boulder being laid off, what do you think is the practical implications of that?
Yeah, so a lot of research that goes into climate, Kyle, is done here in Colorado. I'm not sure a lot of people know this, but Colorado is not only known nationally, but globally as a climate kind of hub. So the fact that we'd be eliminating a lot of these jobs, frankly, there's another way to put it. It's an absolute travesty for us here across Colorado. The chemical sciences, global monitoring, global systems, and physical science laboratories, these are all in climate research, but again, it's not just climate change. It goes into all sorts of different things like hurricane research, severe storms research, and things that really affect our day-to-day weather forecasting. All that would be eliminated. A lot of that is based right here in Colorado. So certainly would be a travesty if that happens. Meantime, showers for us here across the higher elevations, especially for us here across the flat tops. These will dissipate as we head over the next few hours. However, we're going to pump up a lot of moisture out of the Gulf and the Pacific, and the result is that tomorrow looking pretty stormy for us here in the mountains, and some of that moisture will be left over in time for the 4th of July. So showers and storms around for us here in the mountains. Again, these are going to be widespread showers and storms, slow-moving storms as well. Now, the overall severe weather risk is low for tomorrow in the mountains. It's just going to be a stormy day. 4th of July does look to be quite stormy for us here as we head over the next few days, though. We'll have just some isolated storms on the 4th of July, Saturday and Sunday, some typical summertime storms around for us both of those days. And on the 4th itself, again, just looking at isolated storms during the afternoon and high temperatures right around 90 degrees, which is around average for this time of the year.
This is not a great day for journalism in America. The parent company of CBS News is making a payout to settle a lawsuit brought by President Trump, just as ABC News did. Both lawsuits were viewed by legal experts as weak, if not worse. But the network settled rather than fight. The head of the Knight First Amendment Institute said, quote, "Calling these settlements doesn't quite capture what's happening. It's more like surrender or even payoff." Decisions on whether to stand behind journalism in the face of pressure from powerful people, that happens quietly every day in newsrooms across America. I want to let you in on a few private moments that I've seen. Like when a Republican candidate wanted to pick who at 9 News would moderate a debate. Our management said no. When a Democratic candidate for president tried to choose who at 9 News would interview them. Our management said no. We have seen lawsuits, we've seen threats of public boycotts, demands to take down online reports, and pressure campaigns to get rid of a pesky journalist. In public and in private, in courtrooms and in conference rooms, our leadership and our station owner, Tegna, have stood behind our journalism. Now, I recognize that none of those instances rise to the level of a lawsuit from the most powerful man in the world, whose administration holds regulatory approval over broadcasters. But every news outlet, scratch that, every news outlet that challenges power faces pressure to stop doing that, to instead cover safer topics, or to avoid angering powerful people. While it's often journalists you know who are doing the visible part of the job, exercising our First Amendment rights as Americans, more than ever, credit goes to management, leadership, and ownership who stand behind the journalism that matters. Downtown Denver is finally in harmony with some of the best quartets from around the world. Hey, a reminder, you can catch Next streaming each night, 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus. It's free to download. And Next is now a podcast each weeknight, wherever you find those. You never know what you're going to see in downtown Denver, for better or for worse. And this week, you also never know what you might hear.
There's something that's socially special about Barbershop, and that is that nobody can be a hero. Tell our story. You must rely on your quartet mates or your chorus mates. It is the international convention and competition for the Barbershop Harmony Society.
Where's that awesome cameraman? Where'd he go? Hey, cameraman, there's a shot you might want to get of this girl nebulizing to stay hydrated, which is a challenge for people coming in that aren't from Denver.
It's grown and grown and grown. Now we have, at this convention, we have people from 19 countries.
So this is a live performance that's going on right now in the theater. This is one of the quartets that's competing. So this is the Cherylvale Blues. They're a mixed quartet from the United Kingdom.
The Denver Mile High chapter, just the one chapter, one chorus and two quartets competing in this international competition, and that's pretty darn good representation. To save my soul. We have Sunday Night Social, that's also a mixed quartet.
This is my 5th decade of competing at this international competition. I started in the 80s, and now here I am, at 61 years old, still able to sing lead, so I feel very blessed. They keep on stopping by.
Actually, there's a rule in our bylaws that says we are not allowed to force our music on anybody, but we're allowed to offer it. These probably 6,000 or 7,000 people here, I want for them to go away with an impression of Denver that they think, well, why would we ever do this anywhere else?
Oh, what a great line. Hey, that show at the Galleria at the Denver Performing Arts Complex is tomorrow at 4:30. You see more than 100 barbershop singers performing together. Free show. We are back with your feedback next. Thank you. Victim services groups are bracing for federal funding cuts, and yet every day their work continues to protect and support survivors of crime across Colorado. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign boosts the work of Rocky Mountain Law Center. That nonprofit offers no-cost legal advocacy for survivors of domestic violence and stalking, sexual assault, and other violent crime. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get the link to join me and a bunch of other Coloradans in donating to support their important work. Feedback tonight on our commentary regarding CBS News joining ABC News in issuing a payout to President Trump rather than fighting a lawsuit that many found to be lacking on the merits. Ross from Loveland writes in to say, sending massive appreciation to you, 9 News, and Tegna for the courage to stand up for responsible journalism. Ross, I appreciate you shouting out not just the folks who work on this program, but also 9 News, also our parent company Tegna, because that's the whole point of this, right? If there's not support all the way down the line, this work can't be done. John says, as a veteran journalist of 50-plus years, compliment your team on your eloquent and easily understood reporting and your unapologetic commentary. And Justin says, if the propagandists at 9 News hate it, I love it. And I love the fact that you could say that, Justin. Welcome to America, baby.